Guys, look at this. Oh! Finally got to upgrade the desk. So because we were putting this desk together and spent all of yesterday doing that, none of my my setup, my original setup that you usually see on this channel is not set up whatsoever. I'm just blasting a light into the corner, which is one of the tips from today's video. But instead of setting up the old space, the old YouTube setup, which I obviously will because it's my favorite, I figured for this video, if I'm gonna be sharing how to approach a scene, how to use these 5 basic tips to light a scene professionally, I figured we would actually set up a new spot. We're gonna set up a scene right here as if we were doing another segment or a talking scene right here. And I'm gonna show you how you can professionally light that with just 5 easy tips. This is what I do to approach anything that I'm gonna do. And we recently got this light in that I've been using for the past couple of weeks. It's pretty cool. This right here is the Weeylite Ninja 20. This is a new light aimed for photo and video. So not just video, but also photography. Really interesting. I've already used this on a shoot and I've used it here in a couple of different settings. So I figured in today's video, while I share these tips, I'd also review this light. So let's get into the video right now. First of all, don't use this. Don't use overhead lighting anywhere. No matter what scene you're about to do, turn these off. And tip number 2 is to use window lighting. Here in this scene, for example, we have no lighting. We have the lights are off. We have this, obviously that's a cool background light, but get by a window. If you use window lighting, the cool thing about windows is it's gonna be naturally diffused and soft. So right now it's a cloudy day outside. We don't even have any sunlight right now, but we have just really nice light. I'm kind of angled off to the side a bit. The camera is close to the window. I'm just getting as close as I can. This is gonna give me nice soft light. Okay, so now that we've turned off the overhead lights, we've opened up the window, now let's see what we can do with artificial lighting. I'm also placing the light on the left side because this is where the window is. So we're basically gonna enhance the window light. Window light's coming in, this is gonna fill in the rest of it that's uneven, unflattering. I'm almost done setting up the scene. So for this, I'm gonna use my 5D Mark IV. No log, no filters, nothing, just 1080p 24, regular color profile. And my go-to lens for my A angle is usually my 35mm. 35 or 50 for this one because it's a tighter space. I'm gonna set it up with a 35. This was literally my lifestyle photography setup, or any photography. Like anything I was gonna shoot that wasn't real estate, this was the setup. Camera is right there, 5D Mark IV with 16 to 35. This is my boom arm with my Rode Video Mic Pro. And here is the light. Look at that. 8%. Jeez. It's powerful, let me tell you. So if I didn't mention tip number 3, that is to enhance with artificial lighting. We have our window light coming in, now we're gonna use artificial lighting, but this looks awful. It looks like we're shining a flashlight directly at us, and it's essentially what we're doing. There's nothing on here, it's just the bulb straight at us. We have it in the position of where we want it, but we need to make it softer, which leads us to tip number 4, diffuse your light. Doesn't matter if you have the most expensive light in the world, if you do not diffuse your lighting, it's just gonna look bad. So now let me show you 3 ways that you can easily do that. So the first and best option is to use a softbox. This right here is a $70 softbox that works great. Double diffused, it's technically a beauty dish, but it still works just fine for video. So now let's rig it up and show you how much better it's gonna look with this. Right there, same percentage that we were at, and look at that, the light is so much softer. Right now it's only at like 8%, so that's wild, but simply putting a really inexpensive softbox immediately makes the light so much softer. Now let me give you two other options you can do if you don't have this option. So another option you can do is point your light directly into the corner of a room. Check it out. So just like that, I could drop my ISO down and it's filling the room nice and evenly. Not as soft like my softbox, but if you ever want to just get more ambient lighting in a scene and you just don't want to use the overhead lights, just take a light and shine it straight into the corner. And if you bounce it off a white surface, it's going to reflect just nice, accurate colors. But if you do it off a crazy paint color, it's going to fill that room with that color. Now, this setup wouldn't be ideal for interviews or something like that, but if it was your only option, I would do that versus just shining the light directly like I did without the softbox, for sure. Whew, don't worry, the good light is coming. So back to our old scene, let's say that this is our light. We don't have any sort of diffusion like a softbox or something like that. If you have one of these, a 5-in-1, which I've talked about these before on the channel, they're so valuable. If you have a 5-in-1, you can use the inside part, which is diffusion layer. Immediately, I can put this in front of there and voila, we got soft light. Obviously, I'm doing this on the fly. Otherwise, I would set this up like the right way, but you know. So if you put this in front of there, no diffusion with diffusion, it makes a big difference. Obviously, you can see there's like a big shadow behind me from the diffusion layer, but you can work around that. You can make the changes necessary, but look at my face. It's pretty soft, so way better than this. We have our key light, we have our camera, our microphone. The scene is set. Had to move it over a little bit because it was catching the reflection right there, as you can see a little bit. But this scene is looking really good. I'm really excited on how this came together. This could be potentially a good spot. So now let's flip to the other camera, the actual shoot, and see what it looks like. So here's what the set looks like with a key light, some diffusion, with a proper placement, everything. What do you think of it so far? Big difference from what we had, correct? And all we did was just add in one key light, some diffusion, a little bit of knowledge, and we have a good looking scene. So tip number 5 is to enhance your final scene. This could be adding in more lights, like a hair light, a fill light, bouncing light in, adding more lights, adding color into your scene, more diffusion, whatever it is. Here's a couple of things that I do after the whole initial setup is pretty much done. First, I look to see if I need any more bounce or any fill on this side. Personally, for me, I like shadows, especially if it's really soft light. I think shadows are okay, looks more of like a dynamic scene. But let's say that your client thinks it's too cinematic, too harsh, or too shadowy, whatever. Again, these 5-in-1s are just the best. You can take one of these, position them off frame to where if you have to use a tighter focal length, and you can bounce light in. So you can see that right here, if I remove this and I put this close up to here, it's gonna add more light in. So depending on where you think you need to add light, you can get a bigger one of these. I have a 6-foot one that I keep in my car and bounce more light in. The last thing I like to do if I wanna make the scene more creative is add in some colors. It's just an affordable RGB LED light that can be great for just enhancing certain lighting, whatever. So in this case, I'll put it to blue. So that way, blue on the background, orange for my skin tones, that way they pop more. Let's position this. I don't know, let's place it directly behind me. Maybe this looks good, maybe not. You let me know, but really easy, simple accent that can maybe make you pop from the scene, make your subject pop more. Just a little bit more of a creative approach. Okay, so let's talk about the Weeylite Ninja 20. I hope I'm saying that right. So first off, this thing has a super awesome build quality. I was honestly really surprised because this is more on the affordable side compared to something like my 120D, my Aperture 120D, which is what I'm filming on right now. You can see same results, especially the fact that this is a $300 light versus my Aperture 120D is a $700 light, but now it's $550, I believe. Now it's $550. So you can tell that the scene looks pretty much the same. So this honestly performs just as well as a 120D, if not a little bit more powerful. My 120D, which is what I'm filming on right now, is 180 watts. Just looked that up. And then this is a 200 watt light, but for half the cost. So first, I always like to get into the build quality. This thing is built really nicely, like full metal casing, really nice design. Like the build looks heavy duty. I can tell that this thing would hold up. So for the price point, especially the buttons and everything, it's really affordable, but really well built. So that's always a good It's always a good thing. I've said this before, if a product feels cheap to me, it's just immediately like such a bummer for some reason. Even though if it performs great, I just feel like I can't trust it in certain scenes. I want to be able to take this on shoots, indoor, outdoor, whatever, and you know, rely that it's gonna hold up. And if a gear feels really cheap and it's gonna hold me back, I don't feel like it's reliable, so probably won't use it. So next up, the user interface. Let's power this guy on. Whoa. One of the things I actually love about this light is you can go down all the way to 0%, and that's 1% and 0%. So the light still stays on, but it's just really easy to just have that like on and off of the light. Okay, I'm gonna make myself really dark for this part, but the user interface is super simple. You have your main control right here for the power, 0 to 100%. You have power button, power cable here. This is the fan option, which is really interesting. Get to that in a second. So you have different types of effects built in already. Like this is like a camera scene, light bulb, kind of a light bulb flickering on and off, SOS. So that's pretty cool. Otherwise you hit CCT back to just go to constant light, and it's just preset at 5600 Kelvin. So no complaint there on the user interface. Immediately when I got it out of the box, I knew exactly how to use it. So I actually really appreciate when products are laid out really simple, really easy to understand. You don't have to read any manuals, you can just understand it. So one of the biggest pros about this light is honestly the power out of this light. So for this price point, to get a 200 watt light that is honestly really good, you haven't really come across something like that. And this thing gets bright. I've used this on a photo shoot before. Recently did a big team shoot where I assisted my friend who was shooting a real estate team, and we used this to light it in the middle of the day in a scene that had a bunch of windows. I have a couple of BTS on my phone that I'll be sharing for that, but I was honestly really surprised and I was really pushing it, but at 100% through a softbox, lit it up perfectly. So a couple of drawbacks that I already have picked up on from using this. I don't know if you can hear this right now, but let me put it to the mic. That low drone is the fan. So one of the things you get with higher end lights like my 120D is the fan is virtually silent. So that's one thing I notice about this. So if you are filming a really quiet set or have this really close to the microphone, that could be an issue, especially if it, you know, affects that. But here's the interesting thing. If you keep it under 20%, you can hit this fan button and it turns the fan off, but you can't go past 20%. So if I turn the fan back on, I can go much brighter, but then right now I'm at 37%. The second I hit the fan button to turn it off, it's gonna go back to 20%. So you do have a limit on that if you want it to be like dead silent. Not a deal breaker. I can imagine that this would be pretty far away usually from your mic and it wouldn't be picked up, but just something to note because you might encounter that. My last complaint, and it's really interesting, is actually the power cable. So this plugs in, it has a box and it just plugs into the back of it. And I don't know if it's a design flaw or something, but if you put this really high up and you can't mount this somewhere, it's gonna just like, you know, be off the ground, just floating there, and it's gonna put a lot of strain on this. Not like other lights where you can clamp it to your stand or something, or it has a hook. So that was one thing I noticed. I'm sure I could rig something up, but at the time I was shooting, I was like, man, I hope this doesn't like mess it up, because I had to have that light super high, probably like, I don't know, as high as my stand goes, maybe like 12 feet in the air or something. So it was just dangling. So it's the only drawbacks I could think of, but overall, super satisfied with this light. The fact that it's also the same shape as my 120D means it fits in that case. Another drawback was that it didn't come with its own case. So, you know, carrying this around, I could imagine would be a little stressful. So you'd probably have to get some sort of custom casing for it. But honestly, I would definitely recommend this. Really impressed with this light. This is another light that I'll be using in my arsenal. So thanks so much to Weeylite for sending this to me to test out. So that's pretty much it, guys. That is my 5 easy, quick step guide that I use to approach any scene like this one. I've never, set this up before. I've never really filmed in this spot. And this was a perfect opportunity, since I don't have my normal setup for YouTube videos, that, hey, I could just show you guys how I do this, show you that this process really works, this really easy 5-step approach that I do for every scene. Turning off the overhead lights, opening up the windows, seeing what available window light is in, bring in my artificial lighting, diffuse it, add fill, add any practicals, and you're good to go. Leave a like if you enjoyed, comment down your thoughts, subscribe if you haven't already. I would love for you guys to be part of the channel. Let me know if you like this setup more. Maybe I'll do some more videos right here other than the classic editing desk setup, but I will see you guys in the next video. See ya.